All right, I've got a lot of thoughts on this. I know this film came out a little while ago, but better late than never. I think that this film might be getting simultaneously too much hate online and too much love. I can't really say I enjoyed it very much, and the issues are fairly straightforward. But as is generally the case, a lot of my issues are personal bias issues that end up being the actual reason that other people like the film. So, for instance, the reason that I dislike it is actually the draw for some folks. I'll start with my main issue, which is the sex of it all. I'm very happy that we're in an upswing of sexually liberating films lately. Films like 50 Shades, or Baby Girl, or Pillion, or Poor Things, or TV's Heated Rivalry, and this seems to be a response to the relatively sexless 2010s. People equate that whole era with Marvel or the Disneyification and desexing of cinema. You could dig around and find a film here or there that touches on sexual taboo, but in the last few years, it feels like it's being shoved down our throats. There's probably a reason why the marketing for Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights is in quotation marks. You can see it right here in this poster. From what I've read online and heard from trusted sources, there is no sex in Emily Bronte's novel. Catherine and Heathcliff never consummate their affair, and yet, in this, it seems like Fennell's goal was to equate sex with yearning or desire or love. This is an area that I tend to get pushback on, and I understand it's a touchy, personal subject that everyone is entitled to an opinion on, but the linking of sex and love has always just sort of irked me. Certainly, sex could be used as a cinematic tool for depicting two people's passion for one another. You see it in films like Call Me By Your Name, one of my favorite films of all time, in which Elio and Oliver's sexual chemistry is used as a broader metaphor for the intermingling of their souls. There's a heartbreak in their yearning that I just never really feel for Catherine and Heathcliff, because their sexual chemistry seems to be born from libidinal desire and proximity. Heathcliff in this adaptation is presented as the only hot dude in a 30-mile radius and is effectively Catherine's half-brother. Enter the incestuous side of the romantasy genre. At no point does this seem like two adults who are destined to be together. Instead, it comes off as a romance of circumstance, like, well, you were there, so naturally I fell in love with you. And look, I know, the romance genre isn't really my forte, but that doesn't seem very romantic to me. And then beyond that, the depiction of the sex or the sex adjacent imagery kind of felt like the equivalent of those TikTok hunks who bake things in their kitchen shirtless and slap a ball of dough and pierce a cherry pie with two fingers slowly so that some portion of their female audience, and I'm sure male as well, get all wet and horny inside. And listen, to be clear, there's no wrong answer to is this stuff hot to you or do you find this sexy? But my answer is an emphatic absolutely not. The closest this imagery comes to working are the close-ups of Heathcliff's sweaty, heaving back muscles. Other than that, Heathcliff fingering some egg yolks on his bed, Catherine staring at pig feet shaped like penises, and the snail on the window. It didn't work for me. This film seems to be like, isn't sex all gooey and dirty and nasty? And I mean, sure, I guess, but like, to what end is showing me Jacob Elordi slowly fingering some egg yolk supposed to turn me on? And even then, how does it even serve the actual plot of the movie? Maybe I can move on from all the sex stuff for a minute and just talk about the plot too, because again, Emerald Fennell and Warner Brothers seemingly want to market this with quotation marks. From what I can tell, this seems to bear little resemblance to the novel and seems to want to be something else entirely. I heard someone on a podcast mention that Bronte's Wuthering Heights is essentially a story about revenge. And when I heard that, my brain went ding, 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 because we get hints of that here. The sexual torture that Catherine and Heathcliff inflict on one another by marrying other people, Edgar and Isabella, seemed like the most interesting part of the movie. When Heathcliff returns, all dressed to the nines and rich, the movie does kick into another gear that I was vibing with until the sex montage stuff. Their whole tete-a-tete in a room where Isabella is lurking outside and listening in is some of the best stuff in the movie, and it felt like it should have been the whole movie all along. Instead, we seem to get Romeo and Juliet, which is name dropped in the movie, where we have two lovers who are forbidden from being together and they'll stop at nothing to be in each other's arms. Again, from what I hear, that isn't what the book is about. I could be wrong, and someone please let me know down in the comments if I am. But this just sort of seems to be like a Ship of Theseus issue. I'm all for artists taking liberties with adaptation, but if you keep replacing board after board after board, eventually you get a ship that's entirely different from the original, philosophically speaking. Maybe you disagree. Where the book seems focused on internal desire and yearning and love, this film seems hyper focused on the libidinal, carnal manifestations of love and positions those higher than the other form of it. I can't stress enough how little love I've felt between the two. They seem no more in love than any other 20-something New Yorker who has a situationship with a guy or a girl that they just can't keep their hands off of. And whenever we do get inklings of their love, it's presented in plain, straightforward dialogue like this. Be with me always, take any form, drive me mad, only do not leave me in the abyss where I cannot find you. I cannot live without my life, I cannot live without my soul. Now, the saving grace of all this is maybe Emerald Fennell is pulling a big practical joke, which would be pretty punk rock if that were the case. If this is a love story for the 2020s where love and romance are very different things than they were in the 18th century, then sure, I could see that. If Fennell is looking at your Jane Austens and your love stories of old and saying, yeah, that's all cheesy as shit, where's all the f***ing? Then power to her. And all the anachronism in this film seems to be hinting at that, or more accurately, edging at it, because this film feels like one long, prolonged edging session without a proper climax. And then there's the question of like, why not go all the way? As one Letterboxd review put it, I'll see if I could find it. They said, all of that and not one It's a joke, obviously, but kind of a valid point. Okay, I'm going to officially move off of the subject of sex and talk about the rest of the film. The performances I found to be strong overall. I won't go into the subject of casting and race stuff, partly because I don't have the full context, having not read the book myself, and partly because it's been spoken about to death. Robbie and Elordi are solid. Elordi's final moments genuinely did get a emotional response out of me. I think Margot Robbie is one of our great on-screen criers, and there sure is a lot of crying and gazing out of rain-splattered windows in this movie. Alison Oliver was another standout to me. I loved what she was doing here. Having recently seen her in Task with that whole Delco accent thing, I was pretty impressed by her performance, and I want to see more things with her in it. The production design is pretty stunning and vibey. Overall, the film is very vibe forward. And I'll say something maybe a little controversial here. I think there's a legitimate place for vibes movies in cinema, especially when they get butts in seats the way that this one did on Valentine's Day weekend. Does a lot of this feel like music video imagery strung together into a sloppy narrative? Absolutely. Is that inherently wrong? I don't think so. And this isn't the first film to depict 18th century Europe as some flashy, colorful array of opulence and depravity. People have long had a fascination with depicting the ultra-rich as overindulgent, horny narcissists. This may be the first one I've seen that takes a bit of a gothic dollhouse approach to it, which I actually quite liked. The fact that the whole film takes place in primarily 3 locations, Wuthering Heights, Linton Manor, and open fields somewhere, is pretty interesting, especially when you pair it with themes of isolation and loneliness and freedom. The opulence that they portray is counteracted by how dull and lonesome their lives actually are. But then again, this is another example of boo-hoo, you're rich, to be read as sarcastic. Yeah, I think I nailed that. And that sort of leads me to talk about my other main complaint about this film, which is a tough position to be in, given that I see myself as someone possessing an abundance of empathy. Is that okay to say out loud? But I simply didn't care about the characters in any real meaningful way. This happens every now and then where I look at a film and I can locate some hypocrisy within myself, so I want to be self-aware as possible. Compare Catherine to, say, hang in there with me, Marty Mauser from Marty Supreme. Both characters are their own worst enemy. They both keep making poor decision after poor decision and expecting their life not to turn out like shit. And in Catherine, I found this trait to be incredibly off-putting, to the point where I was in the theater going, lady, just fucking relax already. It's not that serious. But with Marty, There's a certain enjoyment and humor and thrill that comes with his poor decisions. Is it a gendered thing that I'm able to connect with Marty more than Catherine? Probably. I won't beat around that bush, but there's something to be said about the distance I felt from Catherine because of her decisions. Her lashing out at Nellie, her rejection of Heathcliff, her saying that marrying Heathcliff would degrade her, her jealousy of Isabella's crush, her firing of Nellie, the one person who knows about her affair, and then her sulking at the end. I found much of it to be eye-rollingly annoying. I was also on board with the anachronistic soundtrack by Charlie XCX. I recommend giving it a listen. It's mainly the imagery that it's paired with that creates a disconnect in my mind. I'm coming to the end here, and the fact that I have this much to say about this film is saying something. The fact that I could fit it all into about a 10-minute YouTube video is saying to me, at the very least, that this is a fascinating exploration of a film. I mentioned in my review of Crime 101 the whole Fritz Lang quote about learning how to make movies by watching bad movies. The idea that you learn about cinema from finding out what you dislike about cinema is kind of a powerful thing for me at the moment. Wuthering Heights and Emerald Fennell in general is the type of film that challenges me to articulate my feelings, which not every film or filmmaker can do. If a film is provocative, I don't think that gives it a get-out-of-jail-free card. I don't think it's grounds for shitting on it or giving it a one-star review just because the internet told you to. It's worth assessing these things in totality. There are things in this film that are praiseworthy for sure. The performances, leaving aside any problematic casting, are well done for what they're given. The cinematography and production design are indulgent in a way that I personally don't mind, as it sets it apart from a visual standpoint. The score is well done as it conveys the yearning feeling in a way that the visuals and writing often fail to. This is far from a disaster, but I'd love to have a one-on-one with someone who loves this film and really pick their brain, because while I could admire this film, I rarely liked it, and when I did, something usually stamped that out pretty quickly. But again, this film got butts in seats. If films like this come around and provide evidence to studios that the theater experience matters, then are you really a film lover if you don't support this at least a little bit? I don't know. I'll let you decide. But what did you think of Wuthering Heights? Let me know down in the comments. When you're done with that, don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on this very channel. And then when you're done with that, go follow me over on Letterboxd so you can see what I'm watching when I'm watching it. When you're done with that, go check out my podcast where I talk about movies with people who love movies. If you're someone who loves movies and you want to talk to me about them, go ahead and send an email down to this email down below, and we can get the ball rolling on getting you on the show. Go check out Wuthering Heights if you haven't already, if it's something that is remotely interesting to you, and come back and let me know what you thought of it. I'll see you all next time.